We're gonna move on to bass guitar. Hey Mando, give me something like a straight ahead. You know, you can do the song we're gonna do, "Girl," and just play through the riff or play through the moments of the song. So the DI, I have that running into a BG1, which is a tube compressor. It's pretty amazing. Now you're probably thinking to yourself, oh my God, that's a crazy DI. It is, but I'm gonna rely on plugins on this. You'll probably be like, oh my God, this is unusable. But when I add in my plugins in the sequence that I use, it sounds pretty awesome. So I don't fret too much on the bass. So I add a LA2A plugin. It's a little bit better. Then I add a Sanzam. It's getting a little bit better. And then I use an R bass. Now, that bass is distorted because that's the way I wanted to do it on this song. So, crazy. Sounds full, and that's from, but everything is matters on this. You know, the Bryce, the BG1 is a tube compressor, so it's just unreal on how big it can sound. So that's Bryce. And that's just the R bass on it. It's a beautiful DI. Then a little bit more aggressive. And it's weird because the Sanzap kind of mellows it out. So, am I cheating a little bit? Maybe. If Mando didn't know, and he just listened back to it, he'd be like, oh, that's a great DI. But if I put that in his headphones, he'd be like, oh my God, I'm not recording with Manny again. He gets terrible bass sounds. So I do, but this is also something I learned from moving fast through sessions. This is only tracking. I know the DI is cool. I can reamp it. I can put it into an SVT rig. I can do anything I want to it. But if I have a band set up and we're good to go, if I put these plugins in sequence, and the sequence is the LA2A, Sanzam, and then the R bass, and then if you can put it through something tube, that would help. So here's everything again. And like I said, this may not be your bass sound, but for this particular project that we're doing, this is an aggressive sound with the aggressive drums, and it's got to cut through some crazy guitars. My guitars are crazy, so crazy and crazy. Let me see if I can get the guys to play together. Let me have you and Phil play together that riff, and I'm gonna check you guys both playing, and then I'll set some levels. So when I give you the cue, Phil, go ahead and play, all right? All right, so this is gonna be them checking the drums with the bass guitar, and we just wanna see if everything's in the ballpark. All the levels, going to the preamps, going to Pro Tools, sound good, so let's just see what we have. All right, guys, go ahead and give me some of "Girl." want them to be able to sound good together, and I feel like it sounds cool enough for them. So like I said, this is off the fly. I'm happy with that. And also, just to be clear on everything I'm using, so the drums are going through 2500. I have it set at 83 in the ratio. Bass guitar is running through an LA2A that's barely pumping. I'll add a little bit more to that. And then it's running through a Sans amp with everything kind of almost at 12 o'clock. It's just giving me some kind of, it actually tames the DI weirdness. And then I have an R bass, once again almost even, but I can mess around with that, and all these aren't committed to the sound, but I can mess with it later. For tracking, I don't put a lot of effects on the master bus, but I do have an EQ cutting some low end. I think it's around 35 the clip happens. I am slamming, or was slamming, a Fairchild. It's just a standard one, but it just gives me an idea. I just use it, it doesn't even matter just for me. When I hear it, I just want it to sound killer. And then I have a limiter on it, which is just barely taking a little bit off the top, and it keeps it, you know, things from getting overloaded. So that's just for tracking. So if you look across what I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 10 plugins, and they're really just helping me achieve good tracks. Anyways, that's Guerrero on drums, Mando Lopez. We'll be tracking a band called the Chavez Ravine, and I play guitar and I sing in it, so good enough fun, right? Cool, man. Thanks, guys. Cool, Phil. You're good. So now that we're done setting up the sounds, I have to do guitars and vocals, and because it's a one man doing everything, when we make our records, it's a little bit of a process to not only record, but then you have to put on the hat to play. But the best thing is, though, I feel really great about the sounds. I mean, we do this over and over again. We've been a band for a lot of years, and we've made a few records, and we have a new record coming out soon, and this is the process. And I chose this, and I know when we get together, it sounds unreal, and Phil really makes the mic sound great, makes me look good. But there is a variable where you have to get things so you can make sure that if someone throws a wrench into the program, you can get it. Like for the kick drum, that could be a problem, but I love it and it works out. As far as the line of my gear and what you hear, like I said, I don't believe in any EQ, so I don't have any EQ. But what I have is, like I said, the MA5s, Brent Averils. Majority of the drums are going through Cytex, which are 4 preamps for a single rack. All day, $700, $800, $900 on eBay or Craigslist. They're wonderful. They don't make them anymore, so grab them while you can. The bass is running into a BG1 tube, and you can't tell in the initial sense of like what is it really doing, but I can tell you this much. When I add it with the plugins that I'm using, when I'm not using it, it's a different story. So I do definitely lean on this to give me a thick sound that I can overdub with the input or the output. Finally, when I'm listening back to the tracking of the session, I got an EQ with a little bit of cut on it just to keep it from being boomy. I got a Fairchild that was slamming earlier because I was too excited about the drums, but then, you know, you mellow it out and it's still fine. And then I got a little bit of a limiter. And this is just so I can feel like it sounds good. Then that goes into some hardware. You're hearing it right now if you're listening to a stereo mix. It's a Allen Smart C2 compressor. I've used one of these for maybe 23 years. different models. They have a C1, C2, and different versions of the C2. This is looks like a mono version of a C2, but it's stereo. And I always use this to just, it's kind of like a radio compressor. If I'm listening back and the band's tracking and it sounds cool through that, I know we got it. So I'm using different levels of gain stages. The drums are the API, the gritty. Bass is a little bit of Sans amp. I'm adding harmonics to it. Then I go into the Fairchild, a little bit of limiter coming out, and then I hit it into, I would call the radio compressor. And that lets me know as I'm tracking a band, as I start to finish tracks, I'm always listening to it in a way that I think when I'm ready to mix. And also it's a telltale sign. If it sounds bad, you'll hear it because it's louder than hell. The last thing in my chain is the monitoring system. I think a monitoring system is important for anyone that's tracking. If you can't hear what you're doing forever, you'll be the guy that's running to your car, running to your house. I don't listen to any other mixes except what comes off my NS10s. And I'll go sit in a car with a band and it's fun. It sounds awesome. And usually it sounds great. But I 100% trust my NS10s for mixing. And then I have ATCs with just, oh my God, just that gives me the reward of what I've been doing on my NS10s. The NS10s are running through a Stewart power amp, which is kind of a hi-fi power amp. It sounds great. ATCs are running out of an old Yamaha power amp. And then my monitoring system, which is super important, is a discrete monitoring system by Inward Connections. They didn't make a lot of them. It's called a DMS7 discrete monitor system. It's got a headphone level for myself, which sounds beautiful. Different sources of inputs. I can put anything I want coming into it. The output goes to my NS10s and my ATCs, and I'll toggle between them to kind of hear what I'm doing. But I'm incredibly happy with this setup. When I mix in this setup, it comes back killer. And the only thing that I'm really fixing at that point are things if I don't like a level of something being too loud or too low. So anyways, that's kind of the breakdown here. When I get ready to do the guitars, I'm going to be using some other pieces of gear. Anyway, so that's the live setup.